I'm at LAX. I should have been on a flight at least an hour ago. I'd say it's a nightmare, but not really. It's just inconvenient. And I get here and there's like a billion people over there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your flight's super delayed." I'm like, "Oh, well, it's not funny anymore." Now we've been here 3 hours.
It has been 8 whole years since our very own Cenk Uygur was frustrated as he was filming a video on social media about how his American Airlines flight to Miami was severely delayed. Because of his complaining, he was also later just completely kicked off the flight entirely. But I have some positive updates, not necessarily in regard to what happened to him, but what happens to so many travelers in America when their flights are delayed. Usually they don't get a refund. Usually they feel totally screwed over. They feel that they haven't gotten what they've paid for. However, it turns out that the Transportation Department has finally implemented new rules that require airlines to give travelers refunds for canceled or delayed flights. Now, some might argue that those rules were already in place, but what Pete Buttigieg over at the Transportation Department did is essentially streamline it so you automatically get your refund into your bank account. In fact, here's Buttigieg explaining more.
We're making it so that by default, you get the refund the same way you paid. So credit card or whatever means you used to pay, you get a prompt refund if your flight is canceled. Same if your flight is significantly delayed. We define that as 3 hours domestically, 6 hours internationally. And there's several other parts of the rule too. For example, maybe your flight got there, but you didn't get one of the services you paid for. You paid extra to check a bag, but your bag didn't get there on time. Or you paid extra for Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi didn't work. This rule makes sure that if that happens, you get the money back that you paid for these services. Part of what we're saying is the refunds need to be not just automatic, they need to be prompt. For credit card, for example, that means 7 business days. We think this is going to improve the passenger experience, and we even think that it can change airlines' behavior because there is less of a reason for airlines to allow scheduling on routes that they can't serve very well.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
I absolutely love that the Transportation Department has done this. This single story, in fact, has put me in such a great mood today because this has been an ongoing issue that travelers have been victimized by for so long in America, where they might get offered a travel voucher if their flight is delayed or canceled, but there's all sorts of tricky and sneaky things that these airlines do to prevent the traveler from getting a refund when that's really what they want. And so just to summarize real quick, the delays covered under these new Transportation Department rules would be for flights that are delayed domestically for 3 hours or more. When it comes to international flights, if it's delayed 6 hours or more, you are obviously eligible for an automatic refund. Included in the rules are tickets purchased directly from airlines, travel agents, or even third-party sites, whether it's Travelocity, Orbitz, you guys get the picture. And I also wanna make a note about international flights. So obviously, these new rules are important if you decide to book an international flight with an American airline. But there are international airline companies that have to abide by rules in the country they operate out of. And European rules when it comes to these airlines are fantastic. And so I remember when I traveled to Europe on a work trip, the flight was delayed and immediately I was met with employees from the airline company giving me a voucher for food at the airport that I was basically stuck at until the flight was ready for me. And they also offered to give you a refund or a partial refund because of the inconvenience of the flight. So if you are flying internationally, see if you can automatically just book with an international airline company rather than an American operated one. But even if you do decide to fly with an American based airline company, you now have this streamlined protection that would give you a refund if your flight is delayed severely. Now, before issuing the refund, the airline might ask you to accept alternative flight or travel credits. Obviously, it's totally up to you if you want to accept that. You have the right to reject those options and demand a refund, though. Buttigieg reiterated that refund requirements are already the standard for airlines, but the new DOT, Department of Transportation rules, hold the airlines to account and make sure passengers get the refunds that are owed to them. But refund policies differed between airlines in part because there was no single definition for a significantly changed flight time, right? So this again streamlines it by saying, listen, if the domestic flight is delayed for 3 hours, the traveler has the right to a refund, and 6 hours if it's an international flight. Now, the rule goes into the Federal Register now, and it will begin to take effect 6 months from now, and that's according to Pete Buttigieg. So they will begin enforcing these new rules 6 months from now. But there is actually even more good news in regard to some of the rule changes we're talking about here. For instance, the Department of Transportation will also require airlines to give cash refunds to travelers whose bags they lost or haven't been retrieved within 12 hours. So you get a refund for that as well. The DOT said it is also working on rules related to family seating fares, enhancing rights for wheelchair traveling passengers for safe and dignified travel, and mandating compensation and amenities if flights are delayed or canceled by airlines. Now, obviously, we know that business groups, moneyed interests are going to attempt to fight this. In fact, lobbying groups are already getting involved and are releasing statements to the press about their displeasure over these new rules. Airlines for America, which is a trade group that represents the nation's largest carriers, last year urged the Transportation Department to withdraw its fee disclosure rule. That's the other thing. They don't want to have to clearly disclose their fees, but nonetheless, they argue further regulation of ancillary service fees is unnecessary, arbitrary, and capricious, and beyond DOT's statutory authority because there is no market failure to regulate. Yeah, disagree. And the idea that the Transportation Department doesn't have the right to compel these airline companies to simply disclose clearly what their fees are is just a ludicrous claim. But it also appears that the Department of Transportation, this is a good sign, has the backing of attorneys general in many states. And so whenever it comes to federal action that may or may not improve your life, in this case, I think it would improve your life, especially if you're a traveler for work and stuff like that. You'll have some of the attorneys general in some of the red states challenge whatever the Democratic administration is trying to implement. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen here because there is a bipartisan effort to make traveling better for Americans, and I'm really happy to see that. For instance, last week, the department announced, meaning the Department of Transportation, a partnership with a bipartisan group of 18 state attorneys general aimed at more quickly addressing consumer complaints about airline or ticket agent practices. Under the arrangement, state attorneys general, using guidelines provided by the Department of Transportation, would review the complaints and then forward those that require further action to federal officials. So it does appear that there is a bipartisan effort here to kind of rein in some of the more predatory practices that we've seen and experienced by these airline companies. And I'm really happy to see it. I'm not a fan of excessive regulation. When it comes to the airline industry, we're nowhere near excessive regulation. They've gotten away with screwing over travelers time and time again, and I'm really happy to see some real action taken by the federal government to, make the situation better for American travelers. It's insane to not have these regulations streamlined for all this time, and I'm happy to see that it is now.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.